You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Do you feel like you're running out of ideas to always keep students engaged during classroom lessons? I know the feeling. Over the years, I've tried out different games and activities, and I now know which ones are always a hit with my kiddos. I've created a free cheat sheet for you with 15 strategies to engage your students during class lessons. Get it now for free at stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/engage. And I know you may be thinking, but Rachel, it's early July. I'm trying to enjoy my summer vacation. No worries. Download and save this one for later. Believe me, you're going to want these ideas for back to school season. Again, you can download your cheat sheet at the link in the show notes or by going to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/engage. Hey there, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So I cannot believe it is already July. I hope you guys are having an awesome summer so far. I'm having a great one as well, but it does seem to be flying by. I think a lot of it has to do because my little one is due at the end of August. So every day is kind of ticking away. But I can't wait to chat with you guys. This month, we're going to focus all about classroom counseling lessons. So as you know, this is your Tier 1 intervention, right? All students are receiving classroom counseling lessons, which may be a little overwhelming. I know I've definitely felt that way before. So that's why this month I wanted to do a deep dive on classroom counseling lessons and how you can make the most out of them. But before we get started with that, I did want to mention the ASCA conference. So I had a listener reach out to me and say, hey, do you recommend going to ASCA? Can you tell me about how it was last year? They were trying to make the decision if they should go, and they did decide to sign up, I believe, but they said, can you please share this on the podcast? I know other people are probably wondering the same thing. So I want to share a little bit about my experience at the ASCA conference last year in Las Vegas. Now this year, it's starting this weekend in Austin, Texas, I believe. I will be joining virtually because I am pregnant, and it was just too late in my pregnancy to travel, but I am bummed because I do love Austin. There was actually a TPT conference there a few years ago that I went to, and I love ASCA and I love school counselors, and I was hoping to connect with some of you in person. It was like technically on the deadline of when I could travel or not. It was like doctor approved, but it was cutting it pretty close. So I decided it would be a lot of travel to be this big, and that I might just play it safe and stay at home. But I hope you guys, if you are going, I hope you have a blast. But like I said, I want to share about my experience when I went to Las Vegas last year. It was my first year attending the conference, and I was a little nervous, to be honest, for a couple of reasons. One, just because of the size of the conference and meeting all the different people. I mean, I am definitely an extrovert, but I do think as I've gotten older, I've become a little more introverted, and it's just conferences are always kind of overwhelming. It's like a lot of high energy, a lot of fun. You're learning a lot, but it is a lot to take in, and it can be like a little exhausting. So I was just like a little nervous about how it was going to go. And I also didn't know anyone going. So I was thinking like, oh, who am I going to sit with at the lunch and things like that. Of course, once I got there, I did see some familiar faces, online friends that I have that I was able to connect with. And I met a lot of new people as well. Everyone was super friendly and welcoming. So if that's one of your fears, not knowing anyone, don't let that hold you back from going. But like I said, I didn't have someone I was like traveling with to go. I mean, my husband came with me, but he didn't attend the sessions, of course. And the second thing I was nervous about was because I felt kind of awkward because I'm not in the classroom anymore, or not in the counseling office anymore. Ever since I worked at the international school during the 2020 school year, and then I have taken some time off because I had my son, Marin, and now I'm pregnant again. And I'm just working on supporting counselors through my course and membership and blog and podcast. So that's where I've been concentrating my efforts. So I'd love to, stay update with all the current research and trends and to collaborate with counselors, but I'm not, at a school site right now this year. So I felt a little weird as well, but everyone was super cool and awesome and welcoming. So it was a beautiful community, and I highly encourage you to go if you're on the fence. I know it's kind of last minute when this episode is airing, but maybe if you're in the Austin area and can still show up, I don't know, or snag a virtual ticket. I'm really interested to see how the virtual component is this year. I'm really looking forward to learning a lot and taking a lot of notes and just, growing professionally as a school counselor. So I would love to know if you guys are going there. Share your experiences. I would love to see them and have a little FOMO because I'm sure it's going to be an awesome, awesome time. It was also just a really cool chance to kind of go on vacation. I love Las Vegas. When I used to live in San Diego, we would go to Vegas all the time just because it was like a 6-hour drive. And so we were, always going to see DJs and stuff. It was a lot of fun. But I hadn't been in a while, and it was actually my husband and I's first trip without our son. So he stayed with the grandparents. He was like just over a year old. So it was a really fun like couples trip, and we went to some fun dinners and shows and stuff like that as well. So not so much DJs anymore. It's changed a little bit, but I love Vegas. It's something for everybody. But anyways, I wanted to answer that listener. Thank you for suggesting that I chat about the ASCA conference. I totally think you guys should go. Like I said, I had a wonderful experience, and I hope you do as well. Let me know. Reach out to me on Instagram at Bright Futures Counseling, and let me know if you plan on attending live or virtually. I'm just curious. But let's get back to class lessons. So the reason I want to start chatting about classroom counseling lessons in July is because I think it's so important to focus on when we're thinking about getting back to school ready. Some of you may be going back at the end of this month, beginning of August. Some of you may be a little later, but never too early to start thinking about it, right? So the reason I like to start with my classroom counseling lessons is because if you think about it, your group and individual sessions are referral based, right? Like these, you're going to wait till you get some referrals and you're going to say, oh, I have like a bunch of self-control referrals. I'm going to make a self-control group. Or, oh, this student needs individual counseling. Their parent told me about them. But chances are you're probably not going to get any referrals those first couple of weeks of school. But it is going to start as soon as school starts? Your classroom counseling lessons. You're supposed to be delivering classroom counseling lessons each and every month to all the classes, including that first month back. I mean, unless you're on a team of school counselors, I don't really know who would call you out on this. They may not even know. But, as a school counselor, you want to make sure that you're really serving your students. And I think it's important to do those lessons starting month 1, so starting in August. And I'll give you kind of a freebie here. I always start with a Meet the Counselor lesson. It's a great way for you to go in and introduce yourself to kiddos. You get to advocate for your role a little bit, clarify who you are and what you do. And it's also a way to model what they can expect for future class lessons. So you can say, hey, this is me. This might Meet the Counselor lesson. I'm going to be coming in every month to do lessons with you. So automatically having the topic of a Meet the Counselor lesson is kind of like a freebie to get started with during that first month. Then, of course, you'll wait until you get feedback on like a needs assessment or the curriculum to follow as you plan your lessons going forward. But what I specifically want to talk about in this episode is a big caseload and how you can do classroom counseling lessons for all students if you have a huge caseload. Now, I hear this complaint from counselors all the time. They're saying, my caseload is so big, Rachel. How am I supposed to reach all of these kiddos? It seems like too much. And I 100% feel you. If you go to the ASCA website, I believe the recommended ratio is like 250 to 1, but that's kind of a joke given how many of us actually have that size caseload. If you do, I think that's amazing, and please tell me. I would love to know. Maybe if you're at a private school or something. I actually think I was 300 to 1 when I was at the international school. It was pretty small, so I was close. But back when I was at public school in California, I was split between 2 schools, the only counselor at 2 schools, and each school had 500, 600 kids, so that's like over 1,000 kids that were on my caseload. That's crazy, but they all needed classroom counseling lessons, and I figured out how to do it, and that's how I'm here to help you do this as well. Because you may be thinking, my caseload's so big, I don't have time to do all of these lessons, plus groups, plus individual sessions, plus parent meetings and duties and all the other things I have to do. But I'm going to break it down into 3 simple steps for you: scheduling, planning, and teaching. So first up is scheduling your lessons. The main thing is that you want to get started. You just want to take action, right? A lot of times when a project seems overwhelming, we just kind of delay and freeze. But if we can take baby steps, one small action item at a time, you're eventually going to meet your goal. And our goal in this case is to see all students, so we need to schedule. And it may seem overwhelming, but I have a few suggestions for you. First off, I recommend that you schedule all the lessons in advance at once during August. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. This is a time-consuming task, and it is going to take effort on your end, but it's in August when you're not going to be as busy. August is like crazy time for teachers, but for counselors, it's not as bad. We usually don't start picking up on things till like September or October, right? That's when we start to get those referrals. Things start to get a little crazier in September. But our first month back, it's a little chill. We're not getting as many referrals, or we're not as busy as we are later in the school year. So this is a good time to do all your planning and prepping. So what I recommend you do is you have your teachers sign up for classroom lessons with you. So we're kind of putting the responsibility on the teachers. Now, of course, we need to follow up and make sure everyone signs up, because it is our ultimate responsibility to make sure the students receive these services. So if a teacher doesn't sign up, we'll have to, follow up with them. But I like kind of putting the ball in their court. And the reason I do this is because I used to send an email to every teacher and say, hey, when's a good time for me to come in for the lesson? And then they would, say, oh, this time works. And then I would say, oh, that doesn't work for me. It's this back and forth email yo-yo, and it's a waste of time for everyone involved. So I was thinking, how can we make this more efficient? Oh, let's just have the teachers sign up for class lessons. So there's a couple ways you can do this. One way is just a simple Google Sheet. You would make a Google Sheet. At the bottom, put tabs with the different months of the year and the topic you'll be teaching. So August, meet the counselor. September, growth mindset. October, bullying prevention, and so on. If you don't have your topics yet, that's okay. You could just put the month. But I like to have the topics if you already have a plan for what you'll be teaching throughout the year. Then on the left-hand side, you have your availability. So you're going to write in when you're available to do class lessons. So, make sure if you have any prior commitments. But again, you probably don't have too much yet, because this is the first thing you're going to be doing, the first thing you're going to be scheduling before groups, before individuals. So go ahead and write your available times, and then you'll have the teachers go in and write their name by the time that they want. So they would go in and put their last name. So they're like, okay, I want the second Tuesday in August at 1 p.m. and they'll write their name right there. So this is a great way for you to get the teachers to choose their class lesson times. Now then, to follow up, you will send a calendar invite to them with reminders so they can remember when they signed up. But here's the thing, I don't want you to do this every month. I don't want you to send out a link every month saying, hey, here's the sheet, can you please sign up for lessons? Instead, I think it's way better if you have them sign up for the entire school year. So you can do this one of two ways. The first way is to ask them for their ideal time. So say, hey, what's your ideal day and time for class lessons? Teachers have really strict schedules. They have their daily schedule of when their kids are going to PE, when they're going to lunch, when they're having a specials teacher come in, whatever. So they might say, okay, I want, first Tuesday of the month, 2 o'clock. Perfect. Then you go through on the calendar and you invite them every Tuesday at 2 o'clock to a lesson. Of course, you want to keep in mind like holidays. You might have to, switch a few Tuesdays around, but overall, that's a great plan and it works for them. Or the second way you could do it is you have them sign up, using those tabs at the bottom, say, please sign up for one time for each month for the rest of the school year. Now, of course, things happen and you may need to reschedule, but for the most part, this is a great way to get all of your class lessons scheduled. Then you can put them on your calendar and you're already done. You have all of your class lessons scheduled for the entire school year. You know that all of those classes are getting class lessons. Then later, you'll fill it in with individual and group counseling, which leads me into the teaching part. So I said this was scheduling, planning, and teaching. I'm going to skip planning for now, I'm back. But that was how you can schedule. But let's talk about teaching. You need to make sure that you're teaching all of these class lessons, right? And that you have time to do this. So by scheduling the class lessons first, you know that you're going to get to all of those. Then you can fill in your small groups. Then you can fill in your individual sessions. So this is the way you can make sure that you can reach your entire caseload. Now, the reason I like to prioritize it in this order is pretty common sense. Just think about the number of people that are involved. Your classroom lessons, you're involving all of the teachers at your school. That's a lot of people. Probably like 20 people are involved. And then when it comes to your small groups, maybe you're communicating with 5 teachers on the best time for the groups. So that's 5 other people you have to consider. And then when it comes to your individual sessions, you're only having to consult with one other teacher to schedule those. So that's only one other person to consider. So if you have to cancel or move something around, it's way easier to do it with an individual session than with a class lesson. So I like to do the class lessons first. Your schedule will start to fill up. Then you can go back and add in your small groups and the gaps, and then you'll still have some gaps and you can add in those individual sessions. So that's how I like to do my scheduling to ensure that I am teaching everybody, right? You can ensure all the classrooms are going to get your class lessons, but that you're also going to have time to see the students in groups and individual sessions on your caseload. So even if you have a huge caseload, use that scheduling tip and that teaching tip to make sure you can see everyone. Now, what about planning? You may be thinking, oh my goodness, I have to plan lessons and activities and games for all of these classes. This is going to take way too much time. And you're right, if you plan an individual lesson for every single class, every single month, that's going to take way too much time. So how can we work smarter, not harder here? Well, one way is to repurpose our content. So what I like to do is use the same topic each month. As I mentioned before, meet the counselor, growth mindset, bullying prevention, and then I modify it for each grade level. So let's use the example of bullying prevention. Let's say we're doing bullying prevention for K through 5. Well, we can do different sub-lessons of bullying prevention to differentiate the curriculum, but to make sure that everyone's receiving the topic. So, for example, our kinders and our first graders, for them, maybe we don't want to go right into bullying and define bullying and upstanders and bystanders. That's way over their heads, right? We want to keep it simple and we want to keep it preventative because it's bullying prevention. So what we can do is teach them about friendship, qualities of a good friend, how they can be kind, or do a kindness lesson. Or you could do a lesson on asking others to play or including others at recess. All of those things lead into bullying prevention, right? These are those social skills they need to learn initially, so later down the road, bullying is prevented. Now with those middle grades, maybe second and third grade, for them you can dig a little deeper. So maybe your lesson would focus on tattling versus reporting, and you define bullying and how they can identify bullying behavior just versus bad behavior, and then how they know when it's considered tattling and when it's considered reporting, when they need to report bullying and how they can do so. That would be a good lesson for those guys. Then for your older kids, your 4th and 5th graders, you can do a deep dive on bullying prevention. This time you can really get them to learn all of the roles in bullying prevention. You know, who's an upstander, who's a bystander, who's a target, who's a bully. They can get the terminology down, and then they could also even practice assertiveness and sticking up to the bully, standing up for themselves or for others, and you could do some role play for this. So as you can see, we've used the same topic, but we've just differentiated it a little bit by grade. So let's say you're showing a video or something, maybe you could even show the same video to everybody, but the activity will differ. So you can keep some of your lesson the same and the topic the same, but small things will differ. And then you noticed I didn't say kindergarten has this lesson, first grade has this lesson. I said kinder and first. So you can group, age developmentally appropriate lessons together. So you could have 2 grades get the same lesson. Now another way you can do this is you can repurpose your content from groups and individual counseling session. So let's say that you have a really fun game that you played with your small group on self-control, and now you're doing a self-control counseling lesson. Use the same game. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. So you likely already have a lot of materials. You don't need to come up with all new ideas, right? Maybe 1 or 2 of the kids have already played the game because they've been in your small group, but chances are your small group's pretty small, so majority of the kids receiving the lesson have never seen this game before. And even those kids who have, well, they're the kids who are in your small group, so they could use the extra practice as well, right? This is the topic that's an area of need for them. And they like to feel proficient in something and say ooh, I know how to do this. We learned this in group. And that's a great way to advocate for your services as well, and to have them, feel like they're really accomplishing their goals in those areas that they're struggling on. And lastly, I have a bonus idea for you, and that is to outsource students. So you could use something like a student ambassador program if you have some 5th grade student ambassadors. See if they, part of their projects could be to teach the younger grades a class lesson. This does a few things. It alleviates you from having to physically teach every single lesson. Instead, you can kind of facilitate and moderate these lessons. And it gives them the opportunity to practice public speaking, to practice working in groups, to prepare a big project, presenting in front of a class, things like that. So obviously you would give them the materials they need, but you teach one set of 5th graders, one time, and then they get to teach a lot of the lessons. And you pop in, and you would have some other teachers or staff to help you supervise to make sure that the lessons are going smoothly. But you can sit in the back, observe, take notes, and give them feedback on how their presentation went. So, and you can hop in and out of the classrooms, as they do this. So that's a bonus idea. If you have something like that set up at your school, like a student ambassador program, you could even try to outsource some of your lessons to your students and take some of it off your plate, Okay, guys, I hope you found that episode helpful. Again, if you're thinking my caseload's too big, I don't know where to start, I definitely don't have time to do groups, individual sessions, and all those class lessons. Yes, you do. Just remember, take it one step at a time, break it down into scheduling, planning, and teaching to make sure that you have everything you need for those class lessons to reach all students. So you can do things like scheduling in advance at once, repurposing your content, and then scheduling your class lessons first to make sure you have time to teach all of your small groups and individual counseling sessions as well. Okay, guys, if you want more support with class lessons, I've got you covered. So like I said, I've created a free cheat sheet for you with 15 strategies to engage your students during class lessons. So you can head to the link in the show notes or get it now for free at stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/engage. Okay, talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.